We're talking ball. We've got the AFC North and the AFC East to get to on our Division Outlook series coming up next on Bite Size Sports. Welcome back, football fans. Here we are. It's Tuesday. It's 8 p.m. Central. You know what that means. We're talking ball. We've got the AFC East and the AFC North to get to, and it's going to be the same layout as last week. We've got a lot of pre-draft discussion, and we're going to talk some free agent retrospective, and we'll get to way too early division winners. So before we get into that, I've got Michael with me. I've got Nick with me. Gentlemen, how the hell are you?
I'm doing all right.
What's up, Mike? What's up, John?
A little nervous. My first flag football practice is tomorrow.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right.
So, yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to it.
That's right. Yeah, Michael's coaching 5th and 6th graders. Is that correct?
Fifth and 6th graders. Yeah, I meet everybody tomorrow. Hand out jerseys. I had to go hunt down a new kid's jersey today. Yeah.
So
You're gonna be like the coach from Bad News Bears, probably. Trying to find a logo and all that.
Yeah.
this will be some good prep for you.
Yeah.
See what the kids think about the Lamar situation.
Yeah.
I'll use my passion from that situation.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're going to start with the AFC East: Bills, Pats, Jets, Dolphins, and not quite as much high-end talent brought into the division, I don't think, at least as the NFC North that we talked about last week. But still some decent signings. I'll start with we'll start with Nick. This is his division. What was your favorite free agent signing for your Bills or any other team in the division?
All right. So obviously there haven't been too many crazy signings other than the trade that happened down in Miami with Jalen Ramsey, which is obviously a prominent one.
Yeah.
One of the best corners, if not the best, coming to the division. So, but free agency wise, I mean, I'd have to go with Damian Harris coming to the Bills. I mean, I thought Tremaine Edmonds and potentially even Jordan Poyer leaving, and and Poyer coming back, obviously on that deal, which was kind of unexpected. But Damian Harris coming from the Patriots in division is really something that's surprising. You usually don't see Pats coming over to Buffalo, especially in the past. It usually went the other way around. But yeah, it was cool to see him. I was watching him over the last few years, and number 37 for the Pats. Who is this guy? Oh, okay, he's a really good running back. We're gonna have to deal with this guy, and then obviously Ramondre Stevenson comes along, and he kind of takes that role from him. But Damian is he's somebody who runs downhill. Obviously with Devin Singletary going to Houston, we needed another running back one. James Cook, obviously in the mold, but this is going to be a really good tandem if we can use them and utilize them correctly. So it's up to Ken Dorsey and the offense now to be able to run the ball effectively. I think, being in Buffalo, if we had, Damian Harris last season in that playoff game against Cincinnati and used him the way that we were supposed to, we would have been able to, at least, rack up a lot more yards than we actually did because we were trying to, have Josh run too much. So I thought that was definitely the best signing so far of the division. Obviously in New England, not much has happened. And not much has happened for the Jets just yet, other than, a couple of moves like Al Lazard and things like that. But obviously we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers, which is pretty inevitable that he'll be signing there. But it's a trade. It's not signing. So yeah, I would say for sure, Damian Harris coming to the Bills. That should definitely help the running game that we've really been struggling with since Shady McCoy left.
Yeah, 1 year, like 2.5 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I was really really interested to see Pats didn't match that, but then they went out and grabbed James Robinson. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Pats. But I think I actually like Damian Harris a little bit more. For a lot of people, that's kind of one for one. They ended up paying him a little bit more to bring somebody from outside of the organization, which I thought was really, really interesting. And they let him go to the Bills, where I think he'll play a huge role. Michael, what was your favorite signing out east?
Ooh, well, last week Nick and I both had the same when he said Tremaine Edmonds. I hate to just copy Nick again, but I really like Damian Harris. I always have. And I admittedly, when free agency first started, forgot that he was a free agent. And then when the signing happened, not only was I surprised that he was signing somewhere that wasn't New England, like I thought he was there for like at least 2 more years for some reason. I was excited because any player leaving New England, I am for. I don't want them to have any players.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was ecstatic that he went to a team that's like likable in the Bills. Just because it is Damian Harris who I like, and he's not playing for, the dark side anymore. He went to a team that has a lot more players that at least I like. So it'll be a lot more enjoyable for me to watch Bills games knowing that Damian Harris is back there. And I never liked Devin Singletary, so it worked out.
Yeah, I like the fit. First and second downs, you got Damian Harris. Maybe James Cook is kind of that true third down back by this point, catching the ball a little bit more. And now you've kind of got your workhorse in place. Devin Singletary was fine in spurts, but I don't think as well rounded a back as Damian Harris with the skill set he brings to the table. Mine is a sneaky one. And I'm also going to give honorable mention really quick to Mike Gesicki going to New England to follow the Jonnu Smith trade.
Yeah.
I thought that was only 4.5 mil on a 1 year for him, which is really unfortunate for him, turning down the tag if I'm not mistaken. And then the tight end market was just really deflated by what's probably going to be a really good tight end class coming out of college. But mine's David Long. To Miami, the linebacker. Sniff, he had some All Pro votes last year, and played really well. And they got him for 2 years, 11 mil. The linebacker market, Michael, I think you were on for that free agency bonanza with me. We talked about how weird the linebacker market seemed with who was getting paid and what certain people were getting paid. But yeah, 2 years, 11 for one of the better young linebackers in football, off-ball linebackers, and I just thought that was a huge steal for Miami. Let us know down in the comments below what you think was the best signing in that division, if we missed any, or if you agree with any of ours. But without further ado, we're going to kick it over to our Bills expert on their kind of collective offseason to this point before we get into some of their draft capital and prognostications for the draft. But I'll actually start really quick with you talked about how Damian Harris was your favorite free agent signing. Outside of Harris, who was your favorite addition or retention, I suppose, to this Bills group, Nick?
It's got to be Jordan Poyer. Yeah, it was just a move that had to happen, and he was on his podcast saying that he wanted to go to a franchise that didn't make him pay more the New York taxes, right? And I was like, oh great, so he's Miami. His his girlfriend, or his wife, no, it's his wife, Rachel Bush. She loves the warm weather. She loves Miami. So I was like, it's a match made in heaven. They have such a good secondary at this point, and for his last few couple seasons, why not, right? Help that defense grow. So I was really expecting him to sign with Miami for a couple of years just to end his career, but to see him, re-sign in Buffalo, say this is where I belong, this is my home, this is where I'm going to finish my career, it's really where his career changed. And he was a Cleveland Brown before he signed with the Bills in 2017. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane were introduced. In their first year, they brought in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, and to see 6 seasons later, they're still the safety tandem and they're still performing at a high level. It's really impressive, and I think that he thinks that he thinks so highly of Micah Hyde and the fact that he's coming back this season, and he thinks so highly of this organization that we're so close every year that he really wants to finish this story in Buffalo. And even though there's been such up and downs for him and for this defensive unit, obviously so good always in the regular season, and they struggle in the playoffs. I just think that it was a big signing to retain him and make him the safety for the rest of his career, as a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, 2 more years. It seemed like he was gone. Like there were a lot of rumors, a lot of things spinning around. Seemed like it was going to be anywhere but Buffalo. So yeah, I was surprised to see that. Definitely a big time retention and re-signing, a leader in the locker room. Yes. And yeah, like you mentioned, still a part of one of the better safety duos in the league. A couple of other signings. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on the Connor McGovern signing because Mitch Morse is back. Do you think that the McGovern plays guard and then moves over to center when Morse retires? Because he might be pretty close to doing so. I think that there were some rumors spinning about him retiring this offseason, no?
Yeah, okay. So Mitch Morse, yes, he had an injury that I believe was in his neck, but I'm not sure. No, okay. I'm getting my centers mixed up here. Eric Wood was the center before Mitch Morse, and he had a neck injury at the end of his career, right? And now Mitch Morse, he had a concussion, like a problem, like he had it all season. And it was to the point where he said, I don't know if I'm going to be back just because, I have my life in front of me. So why would I continue doing this? I've been doing this successfully for a long time. But he is going to be back. Now, I don't know if you know that there's 2 Connor McGoverns in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You knew that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So one of them's a center, one of them's a guard. When we initially signed Connor McGovern, I thought we got the center, and we didn't. We got the guard from the Cowboys. I guess McGovern was the guy from the Jets.
The center's for the Jets,
right? Okay. So
it wasn't the Jets guy that came over.
Wait.
I really thought it was. Okay, no.
So the guy that we got's a guard.
That's hilarious.
So he's gonna be playing guard. Yeah, I know it's confusing for sure.
Dude, that's funny because I thought about that and I was like, oh no, it was the.
It's from the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And then they also grabbed David Edwards, guard from the Rams.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, go on.
So yeah, McGovern coming to the Bills from the Cowboys. He's not exactly he's not the player that the other McGovern is, but right, he's not. Initially when we got him, I was like, oh, that's a pretty good signing. Of course, we still have Morse, but that's a good one. But then my Jets fan friend texted me right away and he said, no, you didn't get our guy. I was like, oh,
you got the other Connor McGovern.
I said, oh, we got the bad Connor McGovern. I said, okay.
Yeah, that tricked me for a couple months now, I guess.
That's the defensive back named Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's on the Jets too.
Well, the Jets have Michael Carter and Michael Carter too.
Yeah. I think the other Lamar Jacksons.
Yeah, but Michael Carter's a lot more common name than Connor McGovern. And
that's true.
That's very true, yeah.
So it's interesting. It's weird, but the Cowboy guard is a Bill, and I'm just expecting the worst because we don't really sign good guards. We haven't been really known for that, especially after last year when we got Roger Saffold. Obviously a really seasoned veteran who's been to the Pro Bowl multiple years with the Rams and things like that, but he did not pan out. Obviously he's getting up there in age. So last 2 seasons, these guard signings have not really panned out, even the draft picks. So other than Deion Dawkins and Mitch Morse, this offensive line is still going to need a lot of work, and Brandon Beane needs to do do some due diligence preparing for the draft.
For sure, yeah, they're sitting at pick 27 here. I see a lot of Bills fandom clamoring for a wide receiver too. Whether that's, I know they're probably loosely in the mix anyway for Hopkins, which would be sick. And then there are some pretty good options in the draft. It's not quite as top heavy a wide receiver class like we talked about. But is that sort of your sentiment as well? Or how do you feel about the wide receiver room as it stands? I guess specifically Gabe Davis. Do you think he really has that kind of wide receiver 2 skill set or ceiling anyway?
Yeah, right. I think that Gabe Davis. So he started out as somebody who we thought that he would just be kind of a get up and, like a red zone target, like a Walmart Calvin Johnson type in the red zone where like you can just go up and get it, and obviously nothing near that. But and all of a sudden he's like making catches in the open field, and I was like in his rookie year, and I was like, wow, okay, this Gabriel Davis guy, who obviously is now Gabe Davis, but like he was making plays, and I was really surprised by it because initially when we drafted him, I didn't see him as that type of player. In year 2, he was obviously the guy who caught the 4 touchdown passes in the Kansas City game where the 13 seconds thing happened, and it was like, okay, that's a breakout game. Now this guy's like on the map. Everybody knows about him. Everybody's seen him in the big game. He also had over 200 yards in that game receiving. So obviously, when Diggs is double covered, why not find Davis? And then last year he broke his thumb early in the year, actually in the Rams game, week 1, and he missed a couple games, and he was never the same. He couldn't. One of my friends would always tell me how he can't catch, and I had to explain to him that he has a thumb problem, and that really impacts your ability to catch the football. So especially coming from Josh Allen, who throws it really hard. So I think Gabe will slot back in and try to get that WR2. He's gonna try to get that back, but it would never hurt to try to get a guy like obviously D-Hop who would be incredible. But there's been rumors, that we might try to go get a guy like Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers. Some of these guys that just out of college, they're gonna have like a chip on their shoulder. They want to come to Buffalo and prove themselves right away and play with a really good quarterback. So a wide receiver at 27 would not be a bad thing at all, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think we should give Gabe another chance to without that thumb injury, because he does say that he's fully healed now.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know that happened week 1, so that's kind of something you can. It's tough to let that fully heal really at any point when you got a 17 game grind ahead of you. Do you think then that there's a bigger immediate need on the roster that you'd prefer addressed with that top pick?
I was looking at Bijan Robinson for a long time until we got Damian Harris. Obviously, I don't think that's a need anymore to sign a running back and then draft one too, especially when you already have James Cook. That's weird. I don't think they should do that at all. And if not receiver, the biggest need on the Buffalo Bills is their offensive line. I think that, I don't know if they're going to try to go there at number 27 or try to go maybe linebacker, because the linebackers without Tremaine Edmonds now, who's been just a catalyst on the defense and kind of like a household name in this podcast at this point. But he was such a catalyst that Matt Milano really played off of Tremaine Edmonds. So the reason that Matt was so good in previous years was because Tremaine would man the middle, and without that, Von Miller's not a middle linebacker. Matt Milano's not a middle linebacker. We're going to need to find that new MLB that is now a vacancy. So, while we could try to go O-line, which would be nice because we definitely need some help there, or receiver, because why not? I think that a middle linebacker or some other type of hybrid backer that can try to, play, because Tremaine Edmonds wasn't supposed to be a middle linebacker coming out of Virginia Tech. He was more of a sideline to sideline, just OLB. And then he kind of, we said, all right, you're going to be the middle linebacker because we don't really have one. So he said, okay. So at this point, why not try to do the same thing? Try to get somebody that can run sideline to sideline with anybody, and make tackles and deflect the ball up in the air for Poyer or Hyde to pick off. I mean, that's how our defense operates the best. So it wouldn't be a bad thing at all to try to get somebody like Drew Sanders out of Arkansas, guys like that. So while those are things of need and offensive line and wide receiver, I think going defense and trying to man that that middle of the field like that Edmonds did for 5 years, I think that it would be definitely important.
Yeah, and I considered too, like when they did the Milano restructure and extension and let Edmonds walk, I was like, maybe they want him to play Mike, but I mean he was an All-Pro at will, a little bit of a not necessarily as conducive to his skill set.
Right.
So yeah, I think you're right. They're probably better suited to find a new Mike backer, and I was thinking cornerback too, but that was such a big need last year just because of the Trey White injury.
Yeah.
So if he's any semblance of himself this year coming back, you probably feel a little bit better about that.
And we also drafted Kyrie Elam, last year as our first pick. So you gotta kind of see that out and see if he's the real deal or not. Obviously him being the first overall pick that we drafted, you can't really. And he wasn't even bad, he just he's a rookie. He had his ups and downs, but coming out of Florida, he's a well suited guy for this defense. I think it'll be really interesting without Leslie Frazier, because it'll be the first year without Leslie that any of these guys on defense have played, because obviously Poyer and Hyde are the longest tenured defensive players at this point since 2017. And this is going to be the first time that they've played without their defensive coordinator for their entire Bills careers. So it should be really interesting how that fluctuates and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I think people got out on Elam a little too soon when he didn't win the job right away definitively.
Right.
But yeah, super toolsy guy. I think year 2 could be a good one for him. Let's jump to.
I do want to bring up, since we're talking about Bills middle linebackers. So you bring up like that's if hypothetically if you're the GM, you're taking middle linebacker at 27 if you can.
Yeah.
I'm not a betting man by any means, but I'd be willing to put money on the fact that Jack Campbell is a Buffalo Bill. Just
that's
purely, it's a perfect fit. Just purely based off of metrics alone.
Yeah.
Like he's just a hell of an athlete in general, but sizes 6'5", 249 pounds. You know who's 6'5" and 249 pounds? Tremaine Edmonds. So yeah, I'm not a betting man, but I'd be willing to put money on Jack Campbell being a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, super similar measurables, super similar athletic testing. Trey's a little faster, as you can imagine. I think like a 4.5, 4, like a 4.6, 4 for Campbell. But Campbell's RAS score is actually higher than Edmonds. 9.98 for Jack, and Edmonds coming out was a 4.66. Granted, Edmonds was a 19, 20-year-old rookie. But Campbell might even be, kind of project as more of like a year 2, year 3 Edmonds as far as his pro readiness goes. And that would be like a really 1-for-1 kind of, okay, well, let this guy walk and get a cheap this guy, like what the Vikings did with Diggs and Jefferson, being like, all right, well, guess we got to draft a wide receiver and keep it pushing. So yeah, that's a great fit. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's jump to Dalvin Cook's next team. No, I'm just kidding. The Dolphins. And that was something I really, really thought was going to happen. And I guess there's still an outside chance, but they re-signed their entire running back room. They re-signed Mostert, Gaskin, and Jeff Wilson.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, I guess maybe not. Yeah, Lee's kind of with your original thought process, Nick, on O-line. They did get 2 solid guards in free agency. Bit of a Bengalsy free agency, except for they didn't really get the top names quite. And right tackle's a little questionable, but
It's very questionable because Spencer Brown is not a good player.
No, he's just a big guy.
He's just big.
Good at being.
He is a big body.
He's just a big oaf that doesn't do anything. What's the
Yeah,
point of
man.
that, man? Yeah,
He's good at being really big, though. I tell you what.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that to his face. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's true.
Like 6'8",
Well,
380.
you couldn't. You'd have to hop on a chair if you wanted to say it to his face.
Yeah.
But Dolphins. One of the first moves they made was signing Mike White. A lot of interdivisional.
I know, right? A lot
signing
more
their
than
best
you think.
signing.
Yeah, a lot more than you think.
So that's been really interesting. But they went out and got Mike White, a little bit of Tua insurance potentially, and I guess they liked what they saw when they saw him play in the division. I talked about David Long. Nothing else huge outside of the Jalen Ramsey move. They also brought over Deshaun Elliott, who just played a year with the Lions. Pretty solid pickup. He can play either safety spot. Yeah, Mike White will win you a game or two. He won't take away too much from what you're trying to do, I suppose, especially the way McDaniel schemes guys open. Mike White can. I can hit Jalen Waddle on a crosser the way McDaniel runs that offense. But one thing I do want to so not a crazy free agency. The Ramsey move's awesome. 2 years ago, this is far and away the best cornerback duo in the league. I think we have seen Xavier Howard take a pretty significant step back. Michael might have an Ethernet issue coming up here. We'll wait for him to get back, but Xavier Howard might have taken a bit of a step back. But I think having both of those guys is going to be really, really a luxury. I think at the very least you're getting an upgrade over the Xavier Howard Byron Jones duo. We talked about Byron Jones. He can hardly run or jump anymore, he says, from just his cumulative injuries in the NFL. And so that secondary is looking pretty scary. I love Javon Holland. Deshaun Elliott should be a nice compliment to him. David Long to go with Jerome Baker in the middle. And Ben, you're exactly right. Jalen Phillips kind of started to take that big step last year. In the back half of the season, he was top 10 in pressure rate and really starting to come around. One of the more refined pass rushers coming out of college and just took him a little bit to get there. Christian Wilkins is a fucking monster. Emmanuel Ogba's solid. Like I really like that defense. And it's going to keep them in games, even if they do have Tua going down again, or if, God forbid, something else happens to him, like what happened last year. Like it's going to be a team with a really high floor, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see. They did forfeit that first round pick with the tampering issue with Tom Brady, Sean Payton, and all that. But I guess there's a chance they trade up. There are going to be some really good players left there at 51. So when you consider this roster, Michael, what would you say is the number one need? And if you want to get player specific or just position specific, who do you think they should be targeting there at 51?
I mean, 51 is just such a tough spot because, well, I know, like, obviously why they don't have their first. It's just you need to protect Tua, and because I think the Mike White signing, like, I'm not saying Mike White's a superstar quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I think his name is a lot more than his performance, but I think that's more just that's a real insurance policy because I don't know if Tua makes it through a full season next year. I like to think so, but if he gets hit the wrong way after having 3 concussions last year, that we know of, so if he gets one more next year, like I'm not him if I'm getting back on the field. Like if I'm asked to get back on the field, I should say I am him. I'm not getting on the field. So if you want Tua around for a long time, you need to get a guy like I'm not going to go as player specific. I honestly, when it comes to O line, like interior O line, I don't know anything past like the first round. I don't really know too many top prospects. That's on me. But yeah, they really just need to protect Tua more. And I know that the outside of that, really like corner, I know they just traded for Jalen Ramsey. They released Byron Jones. Um, Xavier Howard, he has spurts where he's insane and then he just gets torched. So if I had to pick between guard and corner, probably picking guard just because Tua's. You pick up the 5th-year option on him, he's your guy. Like you can't not protect the guy that you just spent that much money on, even though it's not really an extension. So.
I was muted there. Sorry about that. If by the grace of the football god, Steve Avila out of TCU is still there at 51. I think it'd be a great get for them. One of the better pass blocking interior linemen coming out. Later round options, a guy like Chandler Zavala, who's pretty solid. A few ways they could go for sure. But yeah, I think you're right. It's probably guard. Robert Hunt took a bit of a step forward last year, and but it is a pretty middling unit here still. Teron Armstead, obviously a huge addition,
Incredible,
and he makes up for a lot. Being able to isolate him on the I guess it's not the blind side for Tua. On the front side of the pocket for him. But right, being able to leave him one-on-one helps the other 4 guys on that unit a lot. So that can cover up some things. But if they do go corner, it is kind of insurance on a really expensive and relatively injury-prone Xavier Howard. It can be kind of feast or famine with him. We saw the 10 interception season, followed by a bit of a down year in coverage by a lot of metrics. He'll reply to you on Twitter though if you say that. So
yes, he will.
Watch out for it. But yeah, it's a really deep corner class, so I don't think you really go wrong with getting a guy in to develop, and you could get those guys late. Nick, what are your thoughts on the division rival? Whether that's a late free agent pickup, draft target, what do you see as a need on this team? Gesicki just walked, I guess. But there's a few other holes I think they could address.
Yeah, Mike, you make a really good point with the protection of Tua. Obviously, after what just happened to him last season, you'd love to get him some more protection. Teron Armstead was for him last year, and he's been obviously a multi-level, just all-pro beast at his position for New Orleans for a long time. I don't know if maybe. Yeah, maybe not protecting, Drew Brees' blind side. I don't know, maybe if that changes the way he plays the position, because obviously he's a left tackle and he's always protecting, a right-handed quarterback's blind side. And if you're not all of a sudden, because it's a left-handed, because I'm sure it was the first left-handed quarterback that he'd ever protected for, I don't know if that changes the way that he plays the position. It's interesting to think about. I don't know if it did, because he was still a really good player. Obviously kind of getting up there in age, but still very, very effective. The guy I'm looking at for the Dolphins here is potentially Noah Sewell out of Oregon, a linebacker. I think that he could do a lot of things for them. Just inside and out, playing the position, running all, sideline to sideline, as I said, with those other guys. A lot of these guys nowadays can do that. And that, with the secondary being so potent, I think that this could be, and obviously they got guys that can rush the passer. I think this is the last position of need on that defensive unit that they can really, if he's available right there, that's a move, man. Noah Sewell out of Oregon, he is a barn burner. He's the type of player that can really transform that that linebacking core. So I think that at the end of the day, they have their receivers, they have the offensive scheme they want. Obviously, they re-signed all 3 running backs, as you said, and they got such a great secondary with Jalen Phillips, with guys. At the end of the day, I think Noah Sewell, I think that's a potential for Miami there at 51.
Yeah, that's not a bad fit. Let's jump to the Jets, Jets, and this will be an interesting one because they're just kind of waiting, They're staging the apartment for Aaron Rodgers to come check it out. They got new curtains up. They got McCole Hardman. They've got new appliances. They're going to let him keep. Allen Lazard's there on 4 years, $44 million. But it's still kind of one of those things. Like the other Connor McGovern is still a free agent. Actually, they're not sure what's
Connor McGovern.
Yeah, because they don't know what's going to happen with A-Raj. They don't exactly know what's going to happen with A-Raj. Somebody back there has got to have a pretty good idea, but they're also kind of holding out a little bit because I think there might be a little bit of a rift where it might be a disagreement on draft compensation. Now we've got their picks rolling on the bottom here now. They do have those 2 seconds, only 3-day 3 picks. And they've got to be holding out not to give up 13. I wouldn't give up 13 if I were them, even if it was just 13, frankly.
No, I want 13.
Yeah, Elijah Moore's gone, so he's not a throw-in.
Yeah, my dreams are dead. Give me 13.
Yeah, I could see like Jermaine Johnson being a throw into that deal, especially when Michael Clemens came in and took his job. Frankly, they've got Bryce Huff in the mix. They've got a lot of young talent that they could kind of sprinkle on top of these deals to make it happen. And there's also a lot of moving parts with the money, whether that's however the deal gets reworked. It's such a goofy situation, especially when he did. Yeah, I mean, especially when he re-signed. Like, why didn't this all happen last season? Why didn't he change teams last season? That doesn't make it. It's so weird.
Yeah, I could talk about that till I'm blue in the face. It doesn't make any sense at all. If he somehow takes less money to play for the Jets when he could have been doing that this whole time, whatever. I don't care.
Or what, Gutekunst, take that Russell Wilson haul instead.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Lee's just talking a little Tua. Tua also, I don't feel that Tua protects himself particularly well. Like he's kind of a bad faller.
Yeah, he's taking judo classes though.
He's taking judo class. Okay.
Yeah, he's taking judo classes to learn how to fall. That's a real thing that's happening.
It is a real thing. Like he just doesn't. I don't know, man.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah,
for sure. Some guys, you've seen Tom Brady year after year in, year out. Whenever he knows that the play's over and he's being sacked, he just goes down. He's like, okay, got me.
He just like leans into the guy that's hitting.
Yeah, he's like, okay, got me. Tua is like, I want to extend the play, and then boom, peace. Like, there's no point.
He gets spun down a lot and continues to try to get the ball out. Like it's just not. I hope he works on that. I hope it's something he's conscious of, and I hope the judo does some wonders. But
I hope so.
Yeah, it might be.
It's gonna start kicking linebackers.
Yeah, exactly. But 13 for the Jets. It could go a lot of ways because we just talked a lot about offensive line, but there's a lot of questions on that Jets offensive line as well. And if you are tearing up the shag carpets and putting down hardwood for Aaron Rodgers, like you might want to if Skoronski's there, for example, at 13. He can play guard, he can play tackle. There's a question mark with Mekhi Becton, who's down to 380, sounds like.
He's huge. He's ripped.
Which is good. Which is good. He reported to camp at like 400 last year.
Yeah.
First round pick. You got Elijah Vera Tucker, who's been phenomenal at guard since coming out of USC. But there's still some room to improve there. Like I do think if Skoronski's there at 13, wherever you want to play him, I know he has sub 33-inch arms. That's guard territory when you talk about measurables, but I mean, he has all the technique in the world. It's tough to have such a hard threshold on a guy who was the highest rated pass blocker in college football per PFF, and then it shows up on tape. But whether you kick him into guard or not, I think that puts you in a really good spot. And you say you've got AVT and Skoronski at your guards. 13 might seem a little rich, but if he's going to be one of the better guards in football, which I think he could be, because he's like I said, he's ready-made with his technique. Yeah, exactly, Lee. They better hang on to 13 there.
I don't like this
energy. Mix. They figure out the money situation, bring McGovern back. All of a sudden, that interior offensive line is looking really good. If Mekhi Becton is any semblance of what he was projected to be coming out, if he's at a healthy playing weight, I think you're in pretty good shape up there. But you do need another piece or two on that offensive line, I think, to round it out. Nick, what are your thoughts on the Jets situation there? Are you kind of in line with O-line? I feel like they've got a lot of young pieces at a lot of other positions of need, but Elijah Moore just got traded away. Like there's some needs kind of popping up as you're making it work to get Aaron Rodgers in the building. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and Elijah Moore was excited about that too. He's hyped to go to play with Deshaun. I'm sure this is probably the first elite. Yeah, it is. It's the first elite quarterback that he's played with in the NFL.
Mike White.
If the Jets do end up holding on to this number 13 pick, which I don't anticipate they hold on to it if they acquire Aaron, but if they do, Broderick Jones out of Georgia he's their guy. You gotta try to get him. I've watched so much tape on Broderick Jones ever since the championship game. I was like, who the hell is that guy? He doesn't allow anybody to go through him. So, I just think that, if it's not Broderick Jones, it could be Skoronski, it could be, Anton Harrison, any of these offensive guards, offensive tackles. They got to go in that route if they're not going to trade that pick. At the end of the day, ultimately, offensive lineman.
Yeah, and Jones too. He's not one of those super long tackles to the point where I think he might have some guard flexibility as well. If Mekhi Becton does not, I don't think. I think he's a little too tall, a little too long. So he's another guy who could kind of just fit in wherever along that offensive line if you need him to. And I think that could be something that's attractive for the Jets given their situation right now. All right, who are the Patriots gonna surprise take at 14 here? They had an interesting offseason to this point. Their draft capital is rolling on the bottom 8 day 3 picks, including 3/4 and 4 6th. So they'll get pretty busy there. They've got a lot of ammo. You might see Belichick trade up even at some point or another in this draft. Who knows? But we talked about Gesicki coming over, and that's a steal at $4.5 million. That would be an interesting one. You talk about Gesicki coming over. James Robinson, 2 years, $8 million. Juju is the other big one. He comes over and they let Jacoby Myers walk. So I don't know. That's sort of one for one. Jacoby Myers might even have a little bit higher ceiling, a little bit more room to grow there. But
Yeah, when he's not throwing games away, yeah, sure.
all right.
Right? Yeah.
But Riley Reef came over on a 1-year deal. And they re-signed a lot of their secondary. I did not think they were going to re-sign Jonathan Jones. He's 29. Once a guy's kind of hitting that age range, you don't see Belichick pay him again in most cases. I also re-signed Jabril Peppers and Jalen Mills, if I'm not mistaken. So they must feel pretty good about where they're at there. But at the same time, in the same breath, there are also a lot of holes still on this roster. You've seen a lot of swings and misses on wide receiver for the Patriots in the past. But 14 may be a pretty juicy spot to Lee, it's Ramondre Stevenson, JJ Taylor. JJ
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. JJ Taylor and James Robinson now. So, there's some room, I think, for a guy like Bijan. I think if he comes over, it's him and Ramondre Stevenson getting a lot of those carries. But the Patriots are always mixing in at least 3 backs, so it's and Taylor's been a practice squad guy a lot of his tenure there. Stevenson, yeah, you're right. I like Stevenson a lot.
That's the reason that Harris, wanted to leave, because Stevenson kind of took over his carries.
Yeah, he's an animal. He's got a Derrick Henry-esque frame. He's not quite the animal Henry is from a physical standpoint, but he's one of few guys who's in that realm. So yeah, I mean, if you get your hands on a guy like Bijan, you find a spot for him in that running back room. Yeah, like I struggle to see them going receiver, even though it seems so obvious. But they've had a lot better luck on late round receivers than first round guys. The tight end room's kind of set now with Gesicki and Hunter Henry. O-line is in pretty decent shape, but you could see them target that there. Trent Brown, Isaiah Wynn, David Andrews is sticking around. They're solid. They're Mike Onwenu is one of the better guards in football. But there's room for a guard. There's Cole Strange there as well, who's looked pretty good. But yeah, that was the
interesting pick last year.
Exactly.
Pick last year.
But I could see them hammering that position. Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers and Adrian Phillips at safety, they're kind of good there. The more I kind of talk about it, it seems like front seven is where they'll invest that high draft capital. Uche and Judon are a great edge duo, but I think on the interior of the defensive line is a way to go. Off-ball linebacker is a good spot to go. Or if one of those cornerbacks you really like is there, there's room for him. It's there's Jack Jones, Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones, which is fine. When you're playing the Patriots, the Joneses are keeping up with you. But
yeah, that's a good one.
The middle of that defense is the way to go. Linebacker or maybe interior defensive line. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I agree. I think that when you delve into this team a little deeper, you see that they're not really making too many moves, and why not? Because you got teams like Miami and Buffalo who are, and if the Jets land Aaron Rodgers, they might be the 4th best team in this division, which is so out of pocket for Bill Belichick. So why not be making more moves? Why not be more active in free agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you see it's more on the offensive side for me. I just think that the defense is kind of set. I think they have a good defense.
They always figure it out in defense, yeah.
Yeah, they'll figure it on the defense. I have a sour. Well, it's not sour, but for the Patriots, I have a sour taste in my mouth about the special teams because of the 2 Nyheim Hines kick returns. Obviously, that's not a sour taste for me, but if I'm a Patriots fan, it is. But at the same time, it's a Belichick-run team. They'll always figure out the special teams. That was just a blip in the radar, some kind of, thing from God in that moment that happened. That wouldn't happen again. Um, so the special teams will be fine. The defense will figure itself out, especially with that secondary being so strong. And then they got Uche and they got Judon. Team's good. Offensively, I saw a tweet that said that Bill Belichick is not totally in, and he's not 100% on who he's going with, Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. And the first thing that I said to myself, and I was like, why are those your options? Those are not viable options in this division. So it's like you got guys like Jacoby Myers, and you bring over Juju, and you still got Johnny Smith, and now Mike Gesicki. And they always have a decent offensive line. And they got Ramondre Stevenson, right? And the quarterback seems to be the only issue here, in my opinion. They have a good defense with a good secondary and some really good, high value playmakers on the D line, and guys that can make a difference offensively. And then you got Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. If they literally just had anybody else that was like competent, this team would be like a 9-11 win team. And it's just like, it's not unfortunate for me, but it's unfortunate for them because it's just they seem like a quarterback away. It really does.
Yeah, really low ceiling anyway on the quarterback room.
Yeah, low ceiling, right? Like,
And if that's how they feel about Mac Jones, if that's Belichick being transparent and he's torn between him and Bailey Zappi, that's rough. So to Lee's question, yeah, I mean, they've got 8 day 3 picks, like I mentioned, and I could really see them getting another quarterback in the mix, whether that's a Jaron Hall, BYU, Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA, Malik Cunningham, Louisville. There's a lot of guys, knowing these guys, they probably go Tanner McKee or something like that. But there's a lot of really dynamic quarterbacks that you could get in the late rounds, and with this many draft picks, yeah, why not? And frankly, I could see them investing one in the 2nd or 3rd round in a quarterback, if that's really how they feel about the room. Like, at least that's what I would do, and that's a good question. As far as the run on Lamar, I think this is a team that's firmly out on Lamar, just the way they operate.
I agree.
Not one to make a blockbuster move, but like they should be in the market.
Well, they should be in the mix, but at the same time, if you have 14, you could almost trade down to because I know it could be really, really unlikely, but I've seen Hendon Hooker going in the 20s. Why not trade down to 18, 19 and try to draft him? This could be a huge splash for the Patriots in the draft if they're able to land Hendon Hooker, who, I mean, he's just been so impressive over his college career and now in the combine. Obviously, he had that horrible that injury to end the year, but I mean, he could be so explosive, especially with this offense and the tools that they have. I think that after seeing what Belichick's done for the last, his whole life as the Patriots, owner or whatever, he's everything for them.
Yeah, whatever he is,
GM and head coach. He's gonna do one of those 3rd round quarterbacks. It's like who's that? Now that guy's part of the mix. Okay, 100%. But it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's Hendon Hooker would be like a splash. Like, whoa, wow, the Patriots got him. Like, didn't expect that. And instead, they're gonna go in the 3rd or 4th round and be like, we're gonna draft this guy because he looks like Tom Brady, and we think he might be Tom Brady. It's like, no, I don't think that's gonna work, man. I really don't. I think Mac Jones was that type of guy that you thought you could mold into be the next Tom, and it just didn't work out. He's just not skilled enough.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. 2023 division winner in the AFC East. Who you got?
Oh wow. I'm gonna go with. I'm still gonna take my Bills, but I'm scared of the Dolphins this year. Like, legitimately.
Yeah, I think I would, if I were, if the Magic 8 Ball told me that Tua is going to play all 17 games,
yeah,
I think I might go Dolphins.
I would also go with Dolphins, but I just think Mike White's going to play like 4 games, and that's going to be and one of them is going to be the Bills in Buffalo. And I do, and I feel like that's going to be the difference. I think, Lee, the Dolphins are good, man. They're good this year, and I'm legitimately, for the first time, I wasn't legitimately scared of them last year, just because I was like, yeah, Tyreek's going to hate it over there because Tua can't throw him the ball. No, I've seen what he can do now. They're actually pretty dynamic with Jalen Ramsey now in the fold. I mean, Diggs kills him every time, but whatever, he's still in the fold. It's different. It's different. It's a different Miami team. It seems like a really sexy team to be like a fan of this year. Miami might win 12 games and win the division, but it's still Josh Allen.
Exactly. And he's the guy that can really, elevate his team. I think the roster around whoever's at quarterback in Miami is a little bit more complete.
Yeah.
Probably raises their floor a little bit more. But your ceiling is much higher with Josh than even if Tua's healthy. So I think I'm going to go Bills as well. We're both on the Bills, and Michael had to scoop, but we'll get his picks in the Discord and hold him to him, I'm sure. So yeah, we're all on the Bills. Let's go. AFC North. So this is another relatively quiet off season for a lot of these teams. Baltimore's in a similar situation to the Jets, I guess, where it's like, I guess we'll see. We don't want to make too many moves before we know exactly what's going on with Lamar.
Yeah.
He's on the non-exclusive tag still, but he doesn't want to play in Baltimore. So it's a really weird situation to make any predictions around.
Yeah.
The only move they've made to this point that's significant is Nelson Aguilar on a 1-year deal to kind of come in as that Marquise Brown kind of deep ball guy. Who's kind of that's the archetype they go for in this offense. They're like, oh, we got Mark Andrews. Let's just get someone who could run in a straight line and call it a day. It is. Trayvon Mullen came over on a 1-year as well. But again, they're not making any significant moves to this point. My favorite signing in this division is actually Dalvin Tomlinson for the Browns. I'm not a huge fan of the extent to which they guaranteed this contract. Interior defensive line tends to age pretty well. But it's a pretty unreasonable. It's 4 years, 57, and it's pretty unreasonable to think they'd want to get off of this contract really until 2026. Through 2025 is more than 50% is guaranteed. The dead cap hits are pretty significant if they move on from him any sooner. But and they also grabbed Mo Hurst and Tristan Hill. Like, they really hammered what's been the biggest need on this defense for a couple of years now, and that's the interior defensive line, stopping the run, and getting some penetration on the interior when they've had such great production at edge with one of the top 3 at minimum, probably best pass rushers in football in Myles Garrett. When they've had Clowney alongside him, they brought in Okoronkwo to likely play opposite Garrett, who's going to be very effective. But yeah, I'm just going to give them their props for addressing that need finally, and really hammering it home. They got a couple more bodies in there, and should help them pretty significantly on that end. Who's your favorite signing in the division?
Yeah, I love that. I love that move for him. Getting Dalvin Tomlinson, he's going to be a good player, for them, especially coming over, and just he's going to make in my opinion, an immediate impact. I'm going to stay on the same team with a trade. I'm going to talk about Elijah Moore a little bit, because unless this doesn't count, if this doesn't count because it's a trade, I'll go with Orlando Brown. But I just didn't want to go with Orlando Brown just because It's just I like the Elijah Moore move a little bit more just because Cincinnati, they're already so good. I think that this Cleveland move elevates them and just kind of catapults them into that mix of being potentially really, really dangerous in this division. Obviously, it's like everybody thinks it's Cincinnati's division to lose, which it is, and then it's like Baltimore and then like Pittsburgh, right? Whereas Cleveland, we're finally going to get a full season of Deshaun Watson with this Brown offense, and Elijah Moore is somebody that's going to come in day one. He's been so frustrated with his role in the Jets. He really hasn't got a fair shake ever since he's been drafted. This is his first opportunity to really show what he has. And with Cleveland, with an elite caliber quarterback, with a top 3 running back in the league, and there's still Amari Cooper. This is just a really good fit in my opinion for Elijah Moore to go. He's been really unproductive, like remarkably, like for his first couple of years, but you have to think he's still 22 years old. He's highly talented, and he's only been in the NFL 2 years with Zach Wilson, who's he's known as one of the worst starting quarterbacks in football right now. So he's got a real opportunity right now to become that number 2 receiver behind Amari Cooper, and that trade just really worked out for Cleveland. And I think I'd give him like an A for that move for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like he should be the true number 2 over there, and really get some targets. That is a great landing spot for him. And it's a similar, I think, a similar role he could find to like that of Jarvis Landry over there, just making a killing out of the slot. And here's Lee. Yeah, Elijah Moore's got one of the sicker whip routes in football. So yeah, I think him working out of the slot particularly is going to be great in Cleveland with Amari Cooper at X, and that run game that they'll be able to work off of. I think it's going to be an excellent fit for the Browns, and particularly a great fit for Elijah Moore, who deserves it.
Yes.
Speaking of the Browns, so not a ton of draft capital. They did a really ugly restructure on Watson. It's so right now his 2024, 25, and 26 hits are sitting at $64 million. So, and there's really no way to get out from under that, where like the Piper's getting paid one of those years, and it's going to be really difficult to work around. But I think they've got enough talent on defense. Brought in some other pretty solid defenders. We talked about Okoronkwo, Mo Hurst, Matt Adams is a fine linebacker, and actually Juan Thornhill came over from the Chiefs, and I think he's going to help on the back end as well with one of the sneaky good duos at cornerback in Denzel Ward and what the hell is his name?
The other corner?
Yeah. I almost said Greedy Williams for a second, but no, it's
Is it? Oh God, this is bad.
I know. I mean, it's pretty good. Hang on.
I think it was like, it's not. No, it's not him. I was gonna say Greedy Williams too.
Right through the search and think of it. I guarantee it.
You're not thinking of him,
dude.
Do they even have a viable CB2 right now?
Sorry to stall the show. Oh yeah, he's sick. He's sick. Greg Newsome, dude. Oh my God, yeah. Greg Newsome's sick.
Yeah,
that's a really good cornerback duo, and I bet Lee hit us with it in the comments. Oh no, he's just talking about Watson. But yeah, so I think that is a quarterback duo that's not talked about enough. They're both great in man. Ward's sticky when he moves to the slot. He can shadow. Newsome's really strong on the boundary, great length. And I think finally they've kind of rounded out that front seven a little bit, so they could be dangerous. Oh, we got Ravens up for no reason. Browns could be dangerous.
Realize that.
Highest pick is 74 though, so that's rough. It's in the draft, I think they're probably going to look at another receiver late. They were able to retain Ethan Pocic to play center next. Inside, probably still the best guard duo in football, and Batonio and Wyatt Teller. Still got Jed Wills. Like it's still one of the better O-lines in football. So being able to lean on that running game, I think you get another receiver in the mix. It's a great tight end class. Maybe you grab one of those guys at 74. And I think you feel pretty good about your defense at this point, at least better than you have the last couple of off seasons. Let's talk a little Ravens. We don't know what the hell they're going to do, or what their plan is, or what they know that we don't know. They're not talking to Lamar's agent. They're just kind of giving him a call and being like, "Hey, man, are you? What?
You okay?"
Which is really nuts. But he's been navigating that process interestingly. There are some people who say he should just come back and play and prove that he deserves a long-term deal. But at this point, I don't think he should have to risk playing on the tag. He's a former MVP at this point. That guy should not be getting the tag. Daniel Jones didn't even get the tag. He didn't get his fifth-year option. He got 4 years, 160. Like, come on. He's not. And I know the guarantees is kind of where the rift begins, but I think if you're the Ravens, you just put your eggs in that basket and see where it takes you. And if you end up having to struggle with like a Huntley season or whatever, I think you're better off than being like, I have no fucking idea what we're gonna do at quarterback if Lamar leaves. Like that seems like a much worse alternative, in my opinion. What are your kind of blanket thoughts on the Lamar situation?
Yeah, because you had a situation where you drafted somebody at the end of the first round, and he turned out to be the second best quarterback in the draft class. And then just a couple seasons later, after an MVP year and multiple playoff runs, well, all of a sudden it's like he's gone, or like it's just you need to re-sign him. Like he's a really, really, really talented player, and
26.
Yeah, and it's like it's sad to see that he's being treated so poorly, in my opinion, because there's been so many guys now that have been paid. Did Daniel Jones really, warrant that deal from what he did? Not really. They put their eggs in his basket and said, "We're going to go with you." Brian Dable is a good fit for this, for this quarterback in this scheme, so we're going to go forward with you. They need to pay Lamar Jackson because he's a good fit for this offense. They keep on trying to, as we said earlier, we got Mark Andrews, and then let's have somebody that can just run fast. Like, that's not really how offense. Everybody always says, look at Josh Allen's offensive weapons, look at Patrick Mahomes' offense, and then look at Lamar's. How is that Josh's or Patrick's fault that Lamar has worse weapons? It's the ownership, it's the GM. Like, you need to do something to help your guy. And then now, when he needs to be paid, they're not helping him out because they're not paying him. It's really unbelievable because you drafted him, in an awesome selection, and then you're kind of failing him at this point.
Yeah, no, they've done him very few favors. They threw him a bone taking Rashad Bateman, and he's fine.
Yeah, right.
But like, you need to continue to invest in weapons. I know your running backs keep getting hurt, but tough shit, man. You need to build a better unit around Lamar, and they just really, really haven't to this point. He's been kind of buoying them and just kind of keeping them afloat with his insane talent. And
right.
When I look at pick 22, the receiver class is a little weird. Where I think you might be better off actually looking at a second round receiver.
Yeah.
And at 22, if you have any of those top of the heap cornerbacks,
Yep.
I think that's probably where you want to go with Marcus Peters aging out. If a guy like Deontay Banks is there, that
Deontay
feels
Banks. I was about to say Deontay Banks, man.
like a perfect fit. That's a Baltimore guy. If ever Maryland too, he wouldn't have to. He wouldn't have to
You don't
go
have to
too
go
far.
anywhere.
So yeah, no, and even outside of that play style, feels like a perfect fit. So that's kind of how I feel about the Ravens. But at this point, it's tough to even speculate because like what the hell is going on? Like it's tough to have a plan around so many unknowns. Now we can talk the Steel Curtain. They don't have 2 first rounders because there's only 31 picks in the first round, thanks to those Dolphins. But it's the top pick in the second from that Claypool trade, and I think they feel pretty good about that. 3 top 50 picks is nothing to sneeze at, and
Mm.
they've got some significant holes to fill. In free agency, though, they attacked the offensive line when Nate Herbig and then Isaac Seumalo coming over from Philly. So that's both guard spots. I think at 17, any of those top 4 tackles that are there, I think you're slamming that pick. I think you're sprinting to the podium if it's Broderick Jones, if it's Paris Johnson, if it's DeJuan Jones, Anton Harrison, any of those guys. I think you're slamming it and kind of rounding out your offensive line that way. 32, I think you have a ton of flexibility there. Top of the second round is one of the more interesting areas of this draft, in my opinion, especially for the wide receiver position, and where they do have a bit of a need, and for like cornerback if they want to go there. If they wanted to go with an off-ball linebacker, they've had a weird carousel at off-ball linebacker, bringing in Miles Jack for a minute.
Wow.
Now they let him walk, and they grab Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But there's not necessarily a concrete high-level plan there. If a Trenton Simpson's there at 32, I think you slam that. Even if a guy like Nolan Smith is there at 32, is more of an edge technically. When you've got Watt, a third edge isn't even a bad way to go. Like there's a lot of players. Mozzie Smith would be sick in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of players that come to mind. Siaki Ika at nose. A lot of players come to mind that might be a good value at 32 for them, especially once you figure out tackle at 17.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really, really, pretty much ideal situation for them based on where they sit in the draft. Anything I didn't mention that comes to mind for you when you think needs in Pittsburgh? Because they could make some noise in this division, frankly.
I know, right? And Tomlin still hasn't had a losing season. It's unbelievable. Every year that he ages and the team gets worse on paper, you're like, okay, here we go. You're gonna be 6-11. Oh, no, they're not doing that because he's just the god of coaches apparently. So the first time that when we were first talking about Pittsburgh, the first thing I thought about was the offensive line for sure. And then if you could try to go either linebacker or wide receiver in the second, that'd be nice. Obviously, they hit a home run last year with Pickens. That's a really good fit in my opinion.
So sick, dude.
Yeah. So that was a home run, helping Kenny out a lot. And now you have an opportunity to maybe make another splash. They could go. Obviously, they have so many third day picks, so you could always go receiver. They probably will late in the round. As you mentioned, Nolan Smith. I mean, I honestly think he'll be more of a top 12 type guy. But if you could grab somebody like Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma, it's just an absolute beast. I don't think they're going to be able to snag Broderick Jones or Peter Stronsky. Those guys are probably going to go in the top 15. But Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, as I mentioned, Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. Those guys are just you need to be on. They'll be on their due diligence for those type of guys, and I really wouldn't be surprised if they get one of those guys in the first round.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And the thing in Steeler Nation right now is building the picket fence, but in
Right.
front of
Yeah. That's what you got
protecting
to
it.
do. Give him as much time as possible.
Mhm.
He's somebody that gets the ball out pretty quickly for how young he is, and he's pretty mature. That game defining moment, or really season defining moment last year for him was in that Sunday night game against Baltimore where he made that throw. I don't remember if it
Throwing
was
left
Pickens or
in
not.
the red zone. I
Was it
remember that.
who did he
Yeah.
throw that to? I don't know if it was Pickens or not. Um,
I think it was like dude, I think it was like Jalen Warren out of the backfield. It
Yeah,
might
I
have
think it
been
was
D.
backfield. Yeah, it was a running back, but
Yeah.
it was an amazing play and really
Mhm.
unexpected. I would because a rookie quarterback who hasn't been, who wasn't drafted that high, you just don't expect to play like that in a Sunday night game.
Yeah. Tough.
Hostile environment. Hostile environment. It was an awesome game. It was an awesome play for him. So I have a lot of hope for Kenny Pickett. Build that picket fence around him. Make him, have good decisions. You got some good players around him. I think that team, can again flourish.
Yeah, and you've got a guy to whom you can really just throw it up, like, when you talk about the rookie class from last year, a lot of people disregard Pickens. It's Wilson, Olave, and then they're like, "Oh, well, Jahan Dotson had the most touchdowns for a rookie." And dude, I don't give a shit. Watch George Pickens, just highlights. You don't need to watch tape. You don't need to some of the catches he was able to make are otherworldly. He has like a Brandon Lloyd highlight tape, dude. Like
Yeah.
just unreal. And all over the course of how long he's been in the league. Like it's not normal. And I think people are going to come to find, by the end of all their rookie contracts, I think he's really going to be in that tier with Wilson, with Olave, and I think he has the best ball skills of either of them. Maybe not as technically sound yet, maybe not as refined, um, but dude, when that ball's coming back shoulder, give me Pickens over just about anybody in the league,
Oof.
let alone that rookie class. He's top 10 contested catch winner probably right now.
Yeah.
He's insane. The way he's able to adjust. I think that's something that people don't talk about nearly enough when they talk about the Steelers or when they talk about young receivers in general.
Yeah.
And I didn't even bring up his blocking highlights. Dude? Like just fucking the way he jams guys out of press, just forklifts them. You didn't think you'd see that necessarily in the NFL too when you saw those highlights in college, but he does it. He puts guys right on their behinds consistently. Um, yeah, you're probably right, Trev. Um, I think they're just going to be. I think they're just stay competitive. It's probably another 9-8, maybe 10-7. Might sniff a wild card, but they're never going to be an easy out, in my opinion. So let's talk the reigning champs, division champs, in the Cincinnati Bengals, sitting at pick 28. Didn't make a ton of noise. Orlando Brown is a big splash signing, only 16 mil APY. That 2023 cap hits only 10.4,
Yeah.
which is super manageable. And then come back to that negotiating table in 2025 pretty easily. They retained Jermaine Pratt, which was huge. Only 3 years, 21 for him. Him and Logan Wilson were one of the better linebacker duos in the league. They got one of the better edge duos in the league, Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson. And it's still just a really solid team. They've got to still be most people's favorites. But Jesse Bates and Von Bell are gone.
Big.
So that probably sequesters Dax Hill to like a full-time free safety role. Might not be able to get as creative with him as you did in the past. Lou Anarumo is back, though, as defensive coordinator, which is huge.
Yes.
He had offers. But Eli Apple calls him a mad scientist. But he did a lot of things well, especially against Kansas City over the years, and really elevating a lot of the players on that unit Eli Apple being one of them, who was kind of a journeyman to that point. But when you look at the roster, they've spent a lot in free agency on the offensive line over the last couple of years. You gotta think they feel pretty good about where that unit's at. They might be anticipating moving on from T. Higgins in the near future, but at the same time, they've been pretty vocal about wanting to retain him and wanting to retain Chase. A lot of money going to be tied into those three pretty soon. But what are your thoughts on? Oh, there's also the Mixon drama. So, what are your thoughts going into this draft, sitting at the back end of the first round? What position or what couple of players specifically would you be targeting if you were the Cincinnati GM?
Yeah. Obviously, as you mentioned, Von Bell and Jesse Bates, losing both those guys is big. They're gonna have to make some kind of move there. And there's not too many safeties at that position. I mean, at that time where they draft. So obviously they're gonna have to take a safety at some point. But 28, no, I'm not so sure.
A couple are probably gone there. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen Michael Meyer, the Notre Dame tight end. I've seen him mocked there a couple times.
Would be
a bad fit, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another guy that I saw mocked there, which I'm really upset about, is my boy Adebawar, whatever his name is. He's better not be a Cincinnati
Adebaware.
Yeah, my Northwestern DT AA, my guy. If he goes to Cincinnati, I'm gonna be upset. Because now I don't have to root against him. So I've seen him mocked there. I've seen Meyer. So at the end of the day, also Brian Breesy as well. But they're gonna have to try to make up for the safety tandem, leaving them basically. Lou Anarumo, he is a mad scientist. Eli Apple, you're not right about most things, but you're right. He's a good player.
All that drop 8 stuff he does is wild.
Yeah. And Logan Wilson's just out of Wyoming. As a Bills fan, Josh Allen talks about him all the time. Logan Wilson is a really good player. He's just like when you look at him, he's Jesus Christ, like he's just see something else. So they still have a good defense. They need to shore up that secondary because they've had it shored up, I guess. But they're gonna have to do that again. Offensively, I've seen that T. Higgins is potentially like a trade target for some teams. I don't think that's gonna happen, but maybe. And in that case, maybe they gotta shore up the wide receiver room. Obviously, right now they have a really good one. I don't think Joe Mixon's going anywhere. So if they can shore up that tight end with Meyer at Notre Dame, Orlando Brown was a really good free agency signing. So I don't think they're going anywhere. You're going to ask me who's going to win the division. It's going to be Cincinnati by a couple of games. But if they can shore up that safety duo that they lost, and maybe find a linebacker here or there in the draft, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I hadn't really considered tight end yet because they just kind of find a vet and roll with it. But it's such a good class. Kincaid would be a nice pickup as well for them. And yeah, you alluded to it. We're going to get to the AFC North division winner. Talk to us in the comments. Who do you have winning this division? If it is the Bengals, let us know who you think is going to be the most competitive. Give them the biggest run for their money. But Nick, you said Bengals is where you're going?
Bengals, yeah. I do think that the Browns will be second place in this division this year. I think the Ravens slipped to third. And maybe even fourth, depending on if it's Huntley all season. Then I do think the Steelers would be third. But I think the Browns are going to be good. They'll win like 9 to 11 games, but the Bengals should win like 12 to 14.
Yeah. Yeah.
You agree?
I don't know, dude. I'm like, you heard me kind of going off a little bit about George Pickens, about
you like the Steelers on this?
Smith coming into his own. If TJ Watt stays healthy, if Patrick Peterson stays okay, here's probably this is a more sober summary of how I feel. But you know what? For the sake of the show,
Mhm.
this is for the Steelers are the team I think is going to be most competitive. I do like them over the Browns. I think continuity is underrated at times. Um, and they've got that from the top down right now, getting some more young guys into the mix. I think they're going to knock this draft out of the park. I could see them having a Seahawksy draft,
Yeah.
where that sort of catapults them back into contention. If they get any of those top 4 or 5 tackles at 17, I think would be awesome. You can get a really good corner at 32. You can get a really good off-ball linebacker at 49, or mix that around however you want to. I think they're just in a really good position to get some high-value pieces in the draft. They hammered guard in free agency, so I think they feel pretty good about offensive line. Even a guy like John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota playing center could be a guy they grab in the top 50. I think there's just so many ways for them to go to improve this team, and I think if the Bengals misstep at any point, I think the Steelers could be primed to take this division, and it could be one of those years where it's like, hey, 3 of them are 11-6, and tiebreaker goes one way or another. Like that, the Ravens, I think that they're going to be kind of well out of it.
Yeah.
And the other 3 are really competitive. Yeah, and I like the Steelers, the way they match up inside the division. And they're coming off. They won 3 straight to get back to 9-8 for Mike Tommy, and I don't know. It's just vibes. It's all vibes right now. We'll come back to this after the draft, but I like what they're in a position to do anyway. So I'm going Steelers. What else we got in the comments here? Michael is going Bengals.
Where are the Browns, Mike?
Oh, the guy sitting next to Mike agrees with him. He forgot his AirPods. So we're broadcasting. There we go. Yeah, that's right, Trev. Oh, I got some lightning outside. Sweet. It's early for a thunderstorm, and April thunderstorms are nuts in Minnesota up here. All right. Well, that's all we got. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. We will be getting to what do we got left? We got AFC West next week.
Nice.
Trevor, we hope you'll be joining us. He's our resident Chiefs fan. And after that, so we've got, like I mentioned, we're going to get to all 3 remaining divisions before the draft. And I actually want to get to them next week and the following week. So we'll do 2 in one of those shows. And then on the 25th, we'll do a bite-size mock draft. So we'll see how many of us we can get on the show. Maybe 4 or 5 of us. We'll run through a full mock, and that'll be just 2 days before the draft. So that plan's coming together as we speak, but all we've got to do is knock out 3 divisions in the next 2 weeks. Maybe next week might be a bit bigger show with Trev coming on, so maybe we'll just go AFC West and then grab NFC West and NFC East the following week. That at least is a loose plan for now. Yeah, Michael, I think we'll do AFC West and hit it hard next week, and then we'll do the other 2 the following. But yeah, that's all we've got. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Like, comment, subscribe before you get off of this video. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell all the football fans.
Family.
Yep.
And,
all right. Nick, always a pleasure, man. Take it easy.
Have a great one, guys.